Traditional animation has seen many ups and downs throughout its long history. People were already writing it off in the 1970s, when a series of box office failures nearly ruined Disney. But at the time, this type of animation had no competition. So, whenever Disney lifted its strict cost-cutting measures and shook up the animation department, there would be a reboot, and profits would pour in from theaters. But the next crisis in the industry wasn't caused by budget cuts or some unfortunate alignment of the stars. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, traditional animation faced a real competitor, one that eventually crushed it. Many people believe traditional animation is better and more heartfelt than computer animation. Sometimes it might even seem like a lot of people truly feel that way. But when traditional animation really needed support, everyone rushed to see computer-animated films instead. The 1990s were the most profitable time for traditional animation. In the 1960s and 1970s, animated features were mostly produced by a single Hollywood studio, and a few Asian ones. But when animated movies started bringing in huge profits in the late 1980s, many Hollywood studios took an interest in the genre. Disney still dominated the market, and their films continued to top the box office charts. They didn't face any serious competition until the late 1990s, when studios like 20th Century Fox and DreamWorks started releasing their own high-budget animated films. Maybe in the 2000s someone could have rivaled The House of Mouse, but computer technology was advancing too fast. As a result, those who tried to compete with Disney simply ended up going under. Today, let's talk about the string of failures in hand-drawn animation at the turn of the century that led to the closure of several studios and pushed the industry toward a full transition to computer animation. The first box office successes in computer animation, like Toy Story, didn't raise much concern. Around the same time, Pocahontas, which usually doesn't make the list of top animated films, pulled in similar numbers, while The Lion King, which often tops those lists, earned twice as much worldwide. So Disney wasn't in a hurry to switch to computer animation and limited their involvement to collaborating with the creators of Toy Story. A Bug's Life, which hit theaters in 1998, didn't seem like a turning point either. The film did well at the box office, but the hand-drawn The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Hercules, released around the same time, performed just as well, or only slightly worse. Plus, Fox and DreamWorks released their own successful animated features, making it clear that the pie would now have to be split among several studios, naturally meaning smaller portions for everyone. The first red flag came in 1999. The main hand-drawn release that year was Disney's high-budget Tarzan. Its computer-animated competitor was Toy Story 2. It might sound funny now, but Toy Story 2 almost went straight to video. At the time, Disney released all sequels to their successful animated films directly on video. Back then, video sales generated strong revenue, and with budgets slashed by 2/3, those films made good money even without theatrical releases. Disney planned to do the same with Toy Story 2 at one point, but Pixar's leadership pushed back. They believed the film was too good to go straight to video, and asked for time to prove it. They got the time, and as a result, Toy Story 2 got a wide theatrical release. Both films did well at the box office, but Toy Story 2, which cost 1/3 less than Tarzan, ended up making more money in theaters. That same year, Warner Brothers also tried to join the race with their high-budget animated film, The Iron Giant. Although it's now considered one of the greatest animated films ever by both audiences and critics, it flopped at the box office, debuting at only 9th place on its opening weekend. The year 2000 was the weakest year for animation. Almost every release either bombed or underperformed, but it was also a tough year for Hollywood overall. This is shown by the fact that the top-grossing movie of the year was Mission Impossible 2, which made $546 million, while in both 1999 and 2001, the biggest hits made over $900 million. The likely reason? The Y2K scare. Everyone was bracing for disaster, saying their goodbyes and expecting system failures, nuclear war, tsunamis, or even asteroid strikes. Going to the movies wasn't exactly a priority. Still, Disney released 3 animated films in theaters: Fantasia 2000, The Emperor's New Groove, and Dinosaur. The failure of Fantasia is complicated. In the US, the film was released exclusively in IMAX theaters, and there were only 54 of them. The budget was $80 million. Basically, it was an expensive promo for the format and grossed $61 million during its theatrical run. The film was clearly a flop, but the studio likely expected that outcome. All things considered, the numbers were actually pretty decent, given it only played on 54 screens. The Emperor's New Groove, on the other hand, was an undeniable flop. Almost everyone in the industry knew it was headed for trouble. It was originally envisioned as a completely different film, much bigger in scale and more dramatic. But when the project was about 50 to 60% finished, test screenings went terribly. Nothing worked. So the studio decided to completely rework the concept. The entire team of animators, directors, and writers who had previously delivered The Lion King was kicked to the curb. The 3 years they spent working on the movie between 1995 and 1998 never saw the light of day. What ended up on screen was pieced together in just 2 years. That's why the movie looks so rough. The studio couldn't cancel or delay the release. There were too many product placement contracts with food and beverage companies at stake. Disney risked losing over $100 million just for breaking those agreements. The $100 million film grossed only $169 million at the box office. It's hard to say how much the final version actually cost, but it was probably closer to $50 million. At that budget, the film may have broken even. Dinosaur is often seen as a failure, even though its box office numbers weren't that bad. The thing is, Dinosaur was also a very troubled project, and its original budget increased significantly during production. The film that ended up on screen was quite different from what the creators originally intended. During production, the antagonist was changed, the dinosaurs were made to talk, and the story started to resemble The Land Before Time more and more. With a budget of $127 million, the film grossed $349 million at the box office. But it wasn't just Disney that suffered. In 2000, another troubled production hit theaters, Titan A.E. We've already talked about it in a video about Don Bluth. With a $75 million budget, it grossed only $36 million at the box office. Around the same time, another traditionally animated film, The Road to El Dorado, sank like a rock. Despite a $95 million budget, it grossed only $76 million. The only truly successful animated project of 2000 was the claymation Chicken Run. With a $45 million budget, it brought in $224 million worldwide. There was also an Asian exception, Pokémon the Movie 2000. With a $30 million budget, it earned $133 million at the box office. However, those Asian successes couldn't change the bigger picture for traditional animation around the world. Finally, in 2001, the inevitable happened. Traditional animation started to collapse. Disney's expensive Atlantis, The Lost Empire hit theaters and got crushed by Shrek without much of a fight. Shrek, which stormed into cinemas with a $60 million budget, grossed $484 million, while Atlantis, with a $120 million budget, brought in only $186 million. Not long after, Monsters, Inc. hit the big screen. With a $115 million budget, the film grossed $528 million. Naturally, computer animation had its failures too. That same year, Final Fantasy bombed hard. The most expensive animated project of the year, with a $137 million budget, brought in just $85 million. This massive flop nearly took down Square Enix, the studio behind the animation. After that, they shifted to lower-budget projects like Advent Children. The year 2002 saw the biggest failure in traditional animation. Treasure Planet flopped at the box office, grossing only $109 million on a $140 million budget. It probably won't surprise anyone to hear that it was the most troubled animated film in Disney's history. Reportedly, work began on it back in 1985. But the project was repeatedly shelved as the creators shifted focus to The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, and later Hercules. After every pause, the production had to start over, scrapping what had already been made. The studio fully committed to the project in 1997, but a couple of years later, everything was falling apart again, and the project had to be restarted. So, even if we ignore the years of failed development, which still cost money, The actual production still took 6 years, which is a long time. At the same time Treasure Planet struggled, DreamWorks' Spirit also underperformed. With an $80 million budget, the film grossed $120 million. The top grossing animated film that year was Fox's Ice Age. Lilo & Stitch, the last hand-drawn Hollywood animation to avoid box office failure, earned only about half as much. In 2003, Disney's Brother Bear and DreamWorks' Sinbad went head-to-head with computer animation. Brother Bear wasn't a massive flop, but it grossed just $250 million against a $128 million budget. Sinbad was a total bust, prompting DreamWorks to shut down its traditional animation division. Meanwhile, Finding Nemo ruled the box office, grossing nearly $900 million worldwide on a $94 million budget. It was becoming clear that computer animation was simply more profitable. Everything came to a close in 2004 with the failure of Disney's Home on the Range. The $110 million film made only $103 million, while Shrek 2 earned $900 million and The Incredibles brought in $630 million. Disney also shut down its division responsible for full-length hand-drawn animation. 5 years later, the studio tried to revive traditional animation with The Princess and the Frog. It was heavily marketed as a comeback and an attempt to save the hand-drawn format. The Princess and the Frog wasn't a total flop. With a $110 million budget, it grossed $267 million. But at the same time, the third Ice Age made $886 million. Up reached $735 million, and Monsters vs. Aliens, despite getting mixed reviews, still earned $381 million. As a result, The Princess and the Frog's modest performance only reinforced the idea that the era of traditional animation was over. Maybe it was too soon to write off traditional animation, and all the failures were just bad luck. In the mid-2000s, while Hollywood's traditional animation was sinking, Asian animation was starting to rise. Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle each earned over $200 million worldwide. Later on, Your Name became a massive box office hit. Even The Wind Rises did really well for its budget. It's especially impressive considering how hard it is for Asian films to reach $400 million, like Your Name did, especially since American audiences don't like watching anything with subtitles. The point is, traditional animation got off to a very weak start in the 2000s. The Emperor's New Groove, Atlantis, Spirit, The Road to El Dorado, they were solid animated movies, but they couldn't compare to Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, Hercules, or Mulan. They all looked cheaper. Meanwhile, computer animation had a green ogre who felt fresh and original, and Monsters, Inc., which clearly had more creativity behind it than The Emperor's New Groove. If Aladdin had come out in the early 2000s, maybe traditional animation wouldn't have been pushed aside, stuck making the kind of projects no one else wanted. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned.